Hello everybody! In today's video, we're going to be reviewing Bachmann's HO scale Devious Diesel from the Thomas & Friends universe. And as the name implies, Devious Diesel is one of the diesel locomotives in the Thomas & Friends universe, and his primary job is to do shunting work on the railroad. And also, as the name implies, Devious Diesel is kind of a troublemaker on the railroad. And in real life, Devious Diesel is based off of the British Railways Class 08 diesel electric locomotive. And again, as we said earlier, that locomotive's primary job was shunting. And the British Rail Class 08 were manufactured from roughly 1952 to 1962. So they had a good 10-year production run, and about a little under 1,000 were produced. So today we're going to be taking a close look at Devious Diesel. Okay, as we dive into Devious Diesel, he's about 5.5 inches from coupler tip to coupler tip. And as you can see, his primary color is black, and he has no signage or railway insignia or numbers whatsoever. And as we move from the rear to the front, you can see he's got the standard hook and loop coupler, which is consistent with the Bachmann HO Thomas & Friends universe. He's got the buffers here, you can see in profile, which kind of matches, the red here matches the color of the bumper, and then you get the black buffer pads there. You got the cab, which is slightly larger than the rest of the hood. And you got a couple windows in the cab here. Those are not clear windows, or you can't see into them. They look foggy on the video, I'm sure, but that is just plastic with kind of a white paint on top of that. And you got a little step up here with the door into the cab. And as we move across, you can see here we've got some mechanics on the side here in the form of these kind of utility boxes here, and then some vent work along the hood. Now, Devious Diesel is an 060, so there's no trailing wheels. You've got your 6 drive wheels here with the linkage, and then you've got no forward wheels. You got a little step up here up in front that leads to a ladder for maintenance access. And then in the front here, you've got, again, your hook and loop coupler, your buffers, the red matching the bumper, which we'll see when we take a front look, and then the black pads of the buffer. All right, as we turn, all right, looking at the back of Diesel here, you can see that he's got kind of an arched roof to the cab, and then you've got 2 windows in the rear, and then you've got some bracing here. The detail isn't overwhelming here by any means, but there is some good detail here stamped into the back. You got a red bumper with what we assume is an airline here. You've got a tow hook, a utility hook in the back with the red bumper, and the buffers, and of course the hook and loop coupler. As we continue to turn, all right, on this side here, you'll see it's, if it's not an exact mirror image of the opposite side, it's pretty close. You've got, again, the cab here with the 2 windows, the door, some handrails that are stamped in. There's no special paint job here like you might see on some of the tank engines, where the handrails might be, painted like a silver or a brass or something along those lines. This is all, black molded plastic, no extra paint at all. And again, like I said, the same, you got your step up here, you've got your linkage, you get a little better view of the linkage down here on the drive wheels. You got your ladder in your step up, like we saw on the other side. So let's go ahead and continue to turn. Okay, as we look at the front here, you'll see the most distinguishing feature here in the front of the locomotive is Devious Diesel's face. Now, Devious Diesel's face here doesn't seem all that devious or menacing. There is actually another version of Bachmann HO's Devious Diesel that has a different face, which does look a little bit more menacing or devious. But We got this pretty much when it was first released, and that Devious face version didn't come out until later. So we don't have that version now, but it is available for purchase. Anyway, looking here on the front, you'll see working from bottom to top, you got your hook and loop coupler, you got the nice red bumper here, which is really the only other paint feature that's different than black, and the white of the windows. You got your utility hook, you've got your airline there, what we assume is an airline, and then you've got your buffers. So those are kind of red back by the bumper, as we said earlier, and then they're painted black up front there on the bumper pads. Now this is a nice little feature here. Those ladders you saw from the side up front here, it wasn't obvious looking at it from the side, but they actually kind of come out and they're separate from the rest of the hood. So that's a little bit of a detail there that's kind of nice. As we've said with a lot of these Bachmann, or all the Bachmann HO scale locomotives in the Thomas and Friends universe, these eyes will traverse back and forth as he's being run on the track. Okay, let's take a look at the top and the bottom. All right, looking at the top here, there's not a ton to see here. There's like a lot of seams across the top of the hood. Not a lot, but 3 seams, and then you've got kind of a seam running down the center line there of the hood. And then you've got on the cab roof, you've got a couple gutters on each side that would shed rain, so that would protect the driver from getting rained on or dripped on when they're getting in and out of the cab. And then you've got this little raised section here on the roof of the cab. There's no bolt work kind of molded in there. There's no detailing like that to speak of. Maybe these diesels in real life didn't have bolt work or rivet work, so not going to fault the detailing there by any stretch. That might just be the nature of the construction. Then you see here on the far end, or the right side here, with those ladders that come up the side of the front of the diesel hood. They attach across the top of the hood in the front. Okay, let's take a look at the bottom. Okay, so the bottom looks a little bit different than our steam locomotives here. You can see that there's a little bit of an axle that kind of runs to the wheels. The wheels are kind of inset a little bit there, at the bottom here. And so you get a little bit of axle work that goes from the wheel to where you can see it here on the side of the diesel. And then those connecting arms, connect to the front of those axles there. You might be able to see a good little bit of detail here from the bottom of those connecting arms and that wheel configuration. There's about 6 screws that hold this all together. So there's 4 screws that hold the the cover to the motor work that's inside there, and then there's a couple of screws out here for the couplers themselves. And then back here is where you see the Bachmann logo stamping, and the part number is right under the rear of the cab there. But anyway, not a ton to see down here, but we just thought we'd give you a look at the bottom. All right, let's give it one more turn. Yeah, so these little shunting diesels are so cool, but at any rate, that is Devious Diesel. Okay, so on our run today, Devious Diesel is going to be pulling 5 tankers, and we're going to start off with Troublesome Truck number 6. Okay, so Troublesome Truck number 6 is a tanker here in colored purple, and you can see here, there's some nice contrasting here that we can focus on. You've got the strapping over the tanker that holds it to the wagon portion of the rolling stock here, and then you've got these kind of cross cables that are kind of wrapped around the dome there that holds it from sliding back and forth, presumably. And then you've also got these little cables here on both sides that presumably also keep it from sliding back and forth or becoming loose in some way. Okay, the wagon portion of the tanker is very similar to all of the other, Bachmann HO Thomas and Friends rolling stock in that it's got quite a lot of detail here. We've got a lot of the brake mechanics here. We've got a lot of the suspension with the leaf springs under there. We have metal wheels. The metal wheels aren't there for any kind of electric connectivity with the track reasons there, but they do kind of add a little bit of weight, and the sound is nice on the rails because it's metal on metal, so it's kind of nice. But basically, the wagon portion is very similar to a lot of the other dual axle rolling stock. All right, so let's give it a turn. Okay, so looking at the end of troublesome truck number 6, we've got the typical troublesome truck face. This one doesn't look as mischievous as the other troublesome trucks or many of the other troublesome trucks. It's kind of a neutral expression. But anyway, it's there, and on the end here you can see that we have the buffers here, which are basically just the same gray color as the plastic that the wagon part of the rolling stock has been molded into. We've got a utility hook, but below we do have the black hook and loop coupler, so that's a little bit of a color difference there. And then you've got this structure up here, which is probably protective in nature, and that it keeps things from bumping against or damaging the front of the tank. All right, let's give it a turn. So this side of the tanker is exactly the same as the opposite side. So there's not a whole lot of additional detail to get into here. You will notice that there's no signage on this piece of rolling stock, so we don't know what product it's hauling or anything like that. It's just a generic purple troublesome truck. But again, nice detail down here. I really like the detail on these Bachmann HO, dual axle rolling stock. But let's continue to turn. And here's the back end of the troublesome truck number 6. Obviously no face, but the same structural details as the front minus the face. So you've got that protective structure here, and the gray buffers and black hook and loop coupler, utility hook, and then there's some other little kind of details in there which kind of adds to the appearance of the tanker. Okay, let's take a look at the top and bottom. Okay, looking at the top here, you can see you've got the little filler dome there where the contents of the tanker would be filled from the top, little hatchway there. You can see if the lighting is right, you can see here that there's some bolt work on either side of the dome and then on either seam here at the end of the tanker. You've got the strapping going across the tank that helps hold it down onto the deck of the rolling stock. And then you can see here a better detail of this kind of diagonal cabling here that wraps around the filler dome there. And you can see how the way it's configured, it would help keep the tanker from sliding back and forth if it ever worked its way loose from the wagon part of the rolling stock. Okay, let's take a look at the bottom. The bottom of the rolling stock here is molded in gray plastic, and that color, carries throughout. Again, you've got your metal wheels here, the black hook and loop couplers. There's a couple of screws there to be able to access the tanker if you ever needed to get in there and do any kind of maintenance or repairs or anything like that. And then we've got the Bachmann logoing stamped into the bottom or molded into the bottom, and the part number. All right, let's give it one more turn. Okay, and that is troublesome truck number 6. Now we've got 4 more tankers to show you. We're not going to go into any detail because the construction of the other 4 tankers is exactly the same as what you're seeing here. So we'll just throw them up on the turntable and give them a quick spin just so that you can see the different signage on the tankers that we're going to be hauling today. So the first up is an oil tanker, as you can see from the signage on the side. It looks like an oil well that has some oil gushing from the top. And next up is a tanker that's hauling tar. Okay, and next up is a tanker hauling Sodor fuel, and you can see the flammable placards on either side of the Sodor fuel lettering. Okay, and last but not least, we have a tanker hauling diesel fuel from the Sodor Diesel Company. And again, you can see the placards on either side of the lettering. All right, let's get Devious Diesel out on the layout hauling 5 tankers.